Greetings ladies and gentlemen and fans of analysis to Analysis Review and Daily. Yes, that's different from the channel name, but I thought we'd keep it simple and easy to roll off the tongue for the channel. So first, apologies. We're obviously missing some banner art and maybe an avatar. My artists are currently wrapped up in other projects, those being EmeraldComet and Gray Silvermane. So be patient, we're just getting started. Speaking of getting started, ultimately I intend to hand off the reins to the audience. But even in the fandom of analysis, I have trouble finding fans who know 10 current analysts that they watch. With all due respect to Silverquill and a handful of others, let's see what we can do to fix that. So think of these first 3 to 4 videos are going to be analysis and a review awareness, where I'm going to toss 10 names at you with about 1 minute of their footage as well as an annotation to their site and a skip button if you simply choose to move on to the next one. If you are not listed in the first 10 videos, do not have a panic attack. Naturally, there will be more. If you didn't see someone you liked, you can still vote them in, provided, number 1, the audio is audible. If I have to give an example for what that is later, I will. Number 2, it has to be someone who's reviewed and or analyzed something within the last 4 months. Obviously later on I'm going to cut this down to 1 or 2, but I want to cast with a bigger net since we're just getting started. Number 3, despite listing 10 people, this is not, and I will repeat, is not a top 10. The order in which the reviews/analysts are listed is not me passing judgment. Number 4, this is not going to be a list of just FNGR's cronies. In the comments, if you would like for me to play a clip from someone you think needs exposure for the next top 10, please speak up. I thank you and I hope to see you soon. And as always, I'm open to recommendations and suggestions.
Infinitely more well-known than I am, and then mooch off their popularity. Am I losing artistic integrity by doing that? Well, I've come this far. Today we're looking at the story Lone Princess by Inkrose. Lone Princess is a fairly short sad fic that originally showed Princess Luna wandering around a deserted castle and experiencing her worst fear of being alone for the rest of her life. This was caused by her looking through the magic door that Sombra created in the Crystal Empire. However, because of the positive reception the story got, an extra chapter was added which detailed what happened when Celestia looked through the door. Aside from that, nothing much else really happens in the story. But then again, not much else really needs to. It's a story that didn't need to be stretched out anymore and is kind of the perfect length by itself. So let's dive right into it, shall we? So the main thing that Lone Princess gets right is its atmosphere. For how short the story actually is, it manages to capture the feel of an icy, quiet, and desolate place very well. In addition, the drastic shift in setting when all of a sudden a large group of ponies begin.
Back when I talked about the lost treasure of Griffinstone, I talked about how the main six's teaching roles were taking away from their characters, that these episodes had no impact on them. Although Do Princess's Dream of Magic Sheep didn't change that, I found myself not minding it nearly as much. This is because their teaching style differed so greatly from other episodes of this season. For starters, when the main six delivered the moral to Luna, they did so as peers. In the Cutie Map and the Lost Treasure of Griffinstone, the characters involved were sent by the map. They had a job there as experts of their craft, and it felt like it. But here, the main six helped out Luna as friends, not role models. The map gives them a higher sense of purpose, being inexplicably pointed in the direction of the problem they were chosen to solve. By simply aiding Princess Luna for no other reason than because they wanted to help out a friend, the main six's role in the episode felt far more humble. And unlike Make New Friends But Keep Discord, the main six were there throughout, trying to do what they can, constantly at Luna's side, instead of just stepping in at the end. But the thing that I like most about how the main six taught in Do Princess's Dream of Magic Sheep was that they let Luna fight her own battle. Throughout all the episode, Luna was talking about how she was reluctant to let the main six help her out. The main six caught on to this and made sure that even though they were by her side all the way,
Now I understand that some people wanted Sassy to get fired in the end, but for me, I didn't really consider Sassy's actions bad enough to constitute a termination of her employment. She's not a bad manager, but just misguided and your typical business pony with an egocentric attitude. Think about it. She's done her research on Canterlot's fashion and marketing tactics and is making these changes for the better of the shop in order to keep the doors open. She's really looking at the big picture here, and when Rarity calls her out on all the changes she is making, it's revealed that Sassy just doesn't want to see another shop she worked for get closed down. If you really think about it, Rarity, you are bound to sell your other dresses sooner or later because as we all know, this is just a trend and they don't normally last forever. Maybe Sassy's methods were a little too ambitious and self-centered at times, but at least she got business booming on the first day of opening. So Rarity gets a chance to run the shop the way she wanted to, and even let Sassy keep.
Glimmer showed up again, as we've all been basically waiting for that all season, And the time travel also wasn't a surprise either, considering it was referenced at the end of Equestria Girls 3 when Pony Twi pops through the portal at the end of the movie. Gee, thanks for letting us know months in advance this will all turn out fine. I think probably the most interesting concept in the episode was how it painted Equestria in so many bleak states. For a show that for its most part is incredibly happy and upbeat, and very rarely wanders into dark territory, having all these doomsday scenarios given a bit of screen time was really fascinating. I think I'm not alone when I say that the first reality with the war with Sombra was probably the most interesting because it was given the most context. Having Rarity, the prim and proper designer, ship off for the war, and even the fact that the show brought something like War into the fold was crazy tonal contrast, which while entirely the point to drive home the narrative importance of the Rainboom, it was also fascinating in and of itself, seeing characters we're familiar with downtrodden and exhausted by conflict, and Rainbow Dash with a prosthetic wing. It was just an interesting lens to view the series through, especially coming from an official source. Seeing all the big baddies get a spot where they triumph was certainly interesting, and
now, taking into account of only the main 3 pony types, 37% were found to be unicorns, 42% were Pegasus, and last and certainly least were the Earth ponies, weighing in at only 20%. Just remember this number. But seriously, you don't have to carry the 4 to see that things aren't balanced. To have a true balance, you need each type to make up of about 33% of the population, with a little bit of wiggle room. Furthermore, if you take a look at this big group picture that includes most of the well-known analysts and reviewers in this community, made by the ever-talented Lightning Bliss, you'll notice the very same trend. When you exclude non-pony OCs, alicorns, and so on from the total of 40 content creators shown, leaving the main 3 types, you have 33 that are either Pegasus, Unicorn, or Earth Pony. Out of them, once again, only 7 of them are Earth ponies, or 20%, the very same number that we found from the Equestria Daily Poll, well under the roughly 33% needed to make things even and balanced, so clearly a skip.
Holy crap, a horse that actually looks like a horse! And I realized that here was the opportunity to talk about a subject I've been sitting on for a while, the misconception of equine anatomy as it relates to Friendship is Magic. Let's start internally and work our way distally, shall we? First, let's start with the digestive system. Everyone goes on about ponies eat meat, yes they do, no they don't, blah blah blah. So one final answer for y'all. Can horses eat meat? Yes, of course they can. They can also eat cardboard, it doesn't make it good for them, nor the preferred method of receiving nutrients. Personally, I like to think the ponies in Equestria are vegetarian. This is more on a social level than anything. I like the idea of children's shows teaching kids to eat healthily, more or less, without having to shove it in their faces. And in pertains to the subject I brought up in my video on Dr. Wolf's channel, I like to think they raise pigs, well, for Fluttershy, so she can feed the meat to her omnivorous and carnivorous animals. And even for the sapient animals who do eat meat, like...
Or the one where the changelings have control of the land, and no pony can be trusted. No pony! So they trust a zebra instead. Good call, guys. Good call. Or the one where the night will last forever! Go Lunar Republic. Or that carefree whimsy of Discord's potential future. And every time Twi and Starlight fight. But eventually Twily figures out that this isn't going to work, and she drags Starlight back to the future. And then they talk, and long story short, Starlight's a good guy now. Lame. Oh, don't you start. You got so many grimdark futures out of this. My Little Pony, the Cutie Remark, is a lot of fun. One of the best things about it is all the potential futures. The King Sombra one was probably the best, as we got the most epic pony war out of it. But it was also cool to see Zecora become the leader of the resistance against the changelings. And Nightmare Moon in full-on Power Rangers villain mode was the... And you know, even the really short ones are great. Like Discord's
one thing that holds it together and stops it from bogging down the episode. Pinky herself. Her performance and her comedy in this episode is top notch. Hell, most of the comedy in this episode is actually top notch. From how she falls apart at the end of the episode to the way she's able to deliver all the goods without making contact with one pony, it's pretty funny. Hell, even Shining Armor gets a moment of hilarity when he sees the room he's staying at. I'm so glad someone gifized this because it's hilarious. Also, as a bit of a side note, considering that the comics are in Shining Armor's room, this technically makes the comic series canon, doesn't it? You know, the one with Cadence and Shining Armor in high school that basically showed that Shining Armor was basically a giant nerd. Also, there's a bit of a freeze frame bonus as far as the comic books go. I mean, if you look closely at the comic before Spike burns it, you can see it's actually a ponified version of Action Comics #1. Whoever came up with that idea, that was a very nice touch, I appreciate it. What I don't appreciate is Rarity when Pinky tries to reveal it, and the only joke that doesn't work in the episode. First, starting with Rarity, look, I understand it's probably just me, and yes, keeping secrets is important, but does Rarity have to come off as such a jerk? Again, I know it's probably just me, but I just can't get over it. Maybe
So the topic of creating an OC has been established, but there's a question that's been on my mind ever since a while after I created and redesigned Sapphire. What happens when you have an OC that looks like another person's OC to the point where you look unoriginal?
Well, that's the thing. Nowadays, with so many people that have joined the fandom and created their very own characters, many, if not all of the different color combinations, hairstyles, etc. have been used in someone else's character in one way or another.
Yeah, maybe you're right, Tai, but let's not forget something vitally important when it comes to OCs. People also tend to steal them. I would know because I ran a semi-popular Facebook page before I started my YouTube career, and I knew a lot of people, including myself, who had their OCs stolen or copied. But yeah, I see what you mean. After all, let's face it, my color combination is rather common, and it's a good combination.
Well, I'm not sure if
securities by herself. Usually she avoids to do everything she is uncomfortable with unless she is actively being forced to do it or has some sort of realization. But here a friendly chat with Spike is enough to convince her to give Nightmare Knight at least a try. By the way, I think Spike was really sweet during that scene, one of his better portrayals this season, and a kind reminder that I actually liked Spike. So, we have flanderization and acknowledgement of character development at the same time. That's paradoxical and makes this episode a little bit hard to judge. I really love that she actively tries to overcome her fear, but I really dislike how she is scared to ridiculous extremes by pretty much everything. The idea that Fluttershy takes on the role to scare her friends is an interesting concept, but I think it would have been better if a tea party would have been actually scary.
What are those?
Those are pony-fight anime characters, Dashi. First we have Ranma from Ranma 1/2, Bulma from Dragon Ball, I have no clue who that's supposed to be, Rei from Neon Genesis Evangelion, and Sailor Moon from, you probably guessed it,